It's the Underpowered Hour. On this week's show, we talk about King Charles's Defender getting a whopping auction price. Here come the tariffs. It's time to panic. And Ike gets another container of stuff from Australia. And now, without further delay, here's the show. Welcome to the Underpowered Hour. I'm Steve Beres, mild-mannered television executive by day and Land Rover collector by night. You can find out more about our cars and what we're working on at theberescollection.com or follow us on Instagram at theberescollection. I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, Ike Goss.
Thank you to everyone joining us today.
I am the manual choke to Steven's cold start fueling map. I'm the classic enriching device of podcasting. Goss.
I own and operate Pangolin 4x4 in Springfield, Oregon, where we live and breathe Land Rovers. Check us out online on Facebook, Instagram at Pangolin 4x4. Let's get started.
All right, Ike. Well, this week, some interesting news in the world of Land Rovering. One is that Defender that His Majesty King Charles has put up for sale because he needs the cash has sold. And as you'll remember, the estimates for it were around the 40,000 pound range, right? That was sort of what they were estimating it would take in. Well, it seems as though it's taken in a bit more than that. I'm not sure that's news, but whatever, slow news week. So this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed to go for more than they were expecting, for sure. Yeah. I don't know how much, provenance a living monarch's, old used car brings,
and not even that old, but relatively new sort of car.
Modestly popular,
I mean, he is the King of England, so I guess that's
it is
something.
Kind of a handsome color.
I like it. Oh yeah, I like it. 68,000 pounds or something?
Yeah, 67 or something.
67 or something, so about just shy of $80,000. I mean, I guess if it was a really nice modern Puma, then sure, I guess.
Maybe in the United States, but in England, it's definitely a premium over standard model.
100%. I mean, that's just a used car. I mean, definitely they are going for more than your average used car from 2016, but certainly not like they are over here or anything. Well, you can't even have it here.
Can't even have it here. And speaking of things that you can't have, the things that you can't have might just be getting more expensive.
Yeah, pretty soon it's going to be can't have anything because it's all too expensive. But of course, the big 25% tariff on all foreign-made cars, which the last time I checked, and parts, which the last time I checked, His Majesty's Land Rover is a foreign car.
It is. Yeah. So, it's interesting. These tariffs are slated to be enacted on April 2nd, which I don't even know how they write the legislation that quickly.
I don't know either. Well, I'll tell you, but probably not very carefully. That's how they do it that quickly. Yeah.
So there's a lot of unknowns with this sort of sweeping executive order, but the brass tacks or the broad framework is tariff on all vehicles and parts that are not domestically manufactured.
That's correct.
It's unclear what that means as far as does that include antique auto parts?
Right.
Does it include used parts? Does it include so many different things we don't know. Does it include, parts that, are for domestic vehicle production?
Right.
Because a lot of domestically produced vehicles use components from overseas.
Absolutely. Even the most domestically produced car, which strangely is the Tesla. That's odd. Wonder why that is. That it's still using 30 to 40%, depending on the model, foreign parts. And the number one of that is a battery produced in China.
Yeah, so if you got tariffs on the parts and you have tariffs on cars, I mean, it sounds like the prices of all cars are pretty much going up 25%.
So,
one of the biggest losers in this situation, as evidenced by their sliding share price, was GM, General Motors, which is a domestic manufacturer. They lost 7% of their value.
That's correct.
Which you would think would be the opposite for a protectionist policy, wouldn't you?
I would think so, but you know what? This is what winning feels like. This is
Does
winning.
It feel like winning?
We're winning so hard right now. We're winning really hard. Yeah, it's interesting. Now every car gets the chicken tax, which is great. So no longer you have to worry about that pickup. Now here's the question: is it compounding with the chicken tax? Meaning, if I want to, import a Hilux, am I getting a 50% tariff on that car now?
We don't know.
God. Well, only one way to find out. Let's import a Hilux.
Now, the other question is, let's say you shipped a car earlier this month.
Right.
But it hasn't arrived yet.
Oh.
So you've purchased the car.
Yes.
You've paid X price with the expectation of X duty or tariff.
Yeah.
2.5% is
2.5%. Yeah.
So now it's on the water. It's shipping this way. You can't stop it. It's coming. And now you're going to
push it into the ocean.
It's going to get stuck at the port with this massive duty.
Oh, it's a massive duty, all right. That's exactly where we find ourselves. In fact, I have a car, as you know, I have my high cap up with my brother in Vancouver. Yeah. And I have been just, lazy, quite frankly, about bringing it down here. And now, not only is it a pickup truck, but it's also foreign made. And oh boy.
Set it on fire, collect the insurance money. That's all I can tell you.
I think so. Yeah.
You're potentially boned. Now, there's a possibility, like many of these tariffs, that it could be rescinded just hours before it's enacted.
That's what they like to do, yeah.
That's what they like to do. So we'll see what happens, but it doesn't sound good. But I am thankful, despite the fact that a large percentage of our, inventory comes from Europe.
That's right.
I am thankful that our container showed up just the other day. So
with a whole bunch of Australian bits and bobs in it.
Yeah. Some upcoming projects. Customer sent us a couple cars, including a really interesting Series 1 welder.
That's so cool. Factory welder. That's awesome.
That'll be an interesting project. Big project. Oh, man. It needs a ton of work, and it's a complicated restoration because you got the entirety of a Series 1 restoration. And then you also have, on top of that, the restoration of the welding equipment, which is pretty complex. There's also governors and linkages and belt drives and PTOs and bellows, accelerator controls, and the welding unit itself. And are the parts sort of readily available for those welders?
You
can just run down to the welding shop.
Just down to the PAX Air and get some.
Yeah, local Lincoln Electric dealer stocks parts for the Land Rover welder from 1950.
Yeah, sure, of course. That makes total sense. And is the owner of this car planning on doing a lot of welding with
I
it?
hope so, because we're going to make this thing completely functional, and we are definitely planning on doing some mobile welding with it.
That's right. Well, you and I both know him very well, and if he isn't, I certainly am. I'll head out there and do some welding with him. No problem.
We're going to get it all set up so you can cut, oxyacetylene weld.
Yeah.
With the electric welder, you can repair the blade on your bulldozer. We want to definitely get it
100%
fully operational.
100%. It's very cool. And I imagine that's a stick welder. That's not going to be it's one of those digital Miller MIG welders. And you just dial in the thickness and just.
Inverter style suitcase welder. No,
suitcase welder.
This is the real deal. So it'll
be
super cool,
pretty
interesting. Yeah, no,
I'm
cool. excited about it. But there's a lot of pieces that need work or need to be fabricated to make it. Return it to its former glory. So in addition to that, got another Series 1 80-inch, and it's an even bigger project.
Right. This is one that you picked up, right?
Yeah, this is a 49-inch, and man, it needs a lot. So it needs framework. It needs the engine is fully disassembled, and the crankshaft has been preserved in a local alkali lake. It looks like thing is a little bit of a
crusty.
We'll see if we can get it going again. It's about 80% there. It needs needs some love and attention, but it's got some worthwhile features. The bulkhead is pretty good on it. And it's got headlights behind the grill, situation. So it has some redeeming qualities, but it's going to be a challenge to get it.
It's in the shape of a car, at least, mostly.
It is, but, much like the Cheddar Man of paleontological fame, it's not all there, and it's not the best preserved.
Like, if you squint at it, you can kind of be like, okay, that's
Do you remember the pictures of JUE, when they first found it in the barn? It's like that, but more disassembled.
More pieces. Oh, good. Well, great. That sounds like that's a great buy.
The other thing is it's not historically important at all.
Oh, right. It's Literally just a car. Yeah.
Just a car.
Great.
But it will be fun. It is
Yeah.
a cool model, and I look forward to getting on the road. So
Yeah.
we'll do our best to save it.
Were you able to chalk a bunch of parts in that container as well?
No, interestingly, I thought that these vehicles were going to come in a 40-foot container. And I was like, oh, maybe there's some room, some opportunity to put some extra pieces in there.
Right.
But it turns out only a 20-foot container was available. So
Oh my goodness.
there were 3 cars into a 20-foot container. So one of the cars was a Defender 120 Australian spec pickup.
Holy
which is about 20
crow. Yeah, I was going to say.
So one 80-inch was on top of that vehicle, and the other 80-inch was like disassembled and packed along the sides and underneath and really just everywhere. So they just sprinkled in the pieces once and then closed the doors. So
That's right. And that was no longer their problem from there on.
Unloading the container definitely took some time to get everything sort of unpacked. But
Did you open the door and then just close it and be like, you know what, return to sender? Not interested.
Yeah, it was tempting.
No.
A lot of rust came out. Like you know how you have to clean the container
Yeah,
after you
of course.
get it? So you
Absolutely.
return it to the container company. So we swept it out.
Yeah.
And there was about 50 pounds of like red Australian dirt and rust flakes and spiders.
And
Don't
giant.
Don't tell anyone about the spiders.
That's right. Just 10-pound spiders from Australia that are
10-pound
now
spiders.
indigenous to your particular part of Oregon.
Yeah, don't worry. They just eat owls.
Yeah. It's all right. It's fine. You got too many owls anyways. All these
Actually,
friggin' owls everywhere.
it's funny you mention that because there is too many owls in Oregon, apparently. It's actually in the Pacific Northwest, but there's a type of owl, I believe it's a barn owl.
Yeah.
And
those are very cute.
It's a very successful owl.
Yeah.
It's a real jerk of an owl. And apparently displacing the spotted owl.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not indigenous to this area. It's an invasive owl, right? It's
Don't
an
think about
invasive
owls being-
migratory owl.
Yeah.
So they've decided that the best thing to do is shoot all of the surplus owls. I'm not even joking. This is a true story. It's not Land Rover related, but it's a true story.
Yeah, but
So-
it is true. So
so
it's
they
Land
have
Rover
hired-
adjacent.
They have hired a crack team of owl snipers to take out 500,000 owls, or maybe more, maybe
Oh my
like 600,000.
God.
Not kidding you. So if
What a plan.
if you like fried owl, come to Oregon.
Or you just like indiscriminate owl murder. Let me tell you. We got a
The
job for you.
genocide of owls.
Of
Yeah.
owls. Seriously. Wow.
That was the
That's-
4th Harry Potter book? Was
Yeah,
that
that's right. I think it is. Yeah, that's right. That was.
Genocide of owls.
It's when it got really dark. It got really,
Really
dark from
dark.
there on out.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
when
yeah.
Chris Columbus stopped directing, and it was
Oh, man.
got real dark from there. Yeah, that was David Fincher's Harry Potter movie. Got real. Speaking of David Fincher's Harry Potter movie, I hear there's a Land Rover credit scandal brewing. I don't know anything about this. This is just something that came up in our pre-show conversation.
We have a history of covering Land Rover crime rings.
It's true. It is
And-
sort of one of the hallmarks of our show.
And so when I read this story, I was like, that's one that we should talk about at least for 30 seconds. So,
That's right.
What was happening was this gentleman, Dennis Odom, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. He
No
was,
relation to Lamar Odom.
It could be, probably
Okay.
is.
All right, yeah.
So he was probably perpetrating this credit. In fact, he admitted to it. So he was.
Oh, okay.
He's
He
already
was, in
admitted to
fact,
it.
perpetrating it, yeah.
He was perpetrating this credit fraud conspiracy. So he was manufacturing false credit report documents and then paying them to go to the dealership and pick up Land Rovers.
Okay.
And basically, he would, fabricate these credit documents and credit reports and other things. And then he would obtain loans for these
okay.
Land Rovers.
Yeah.
And then he would pay people to drop by the dealership and pick them up for a couple $1,000. And then he would, sell them, do whatever with the vehicles. Once
Right,
he
because that
obtained them.
credit was no good. It was gone.
Credit
There was
no
no
good.
person there, yeah.
And so he and his co-conspirators are found guilty after they obtained several Land Rovers fraudulently.
Interesting. Wow. And was this in North America? So that was through Chase, or this was in the UK?
I think it was possibly through Land Rover Finance. I'm
right,
not
which
sure.
is, their back end
It
is all
isn't
Chase.
it?
Yeah. So
I don't know
interesting.
the particulars of who they defrauded, other than they defrauded the Land Rover dealerships.
The dealerships themselves. Well, there you go. That's unfortunate. It's that makes all that stuff more expensive for everybody else. And that's not great. I don't care for it. Don't care for the fraud. Why not just wait until somebody else has bought that Land Rover and then just easily steal it from them? That's a much better. That seems to be much more effective. It's just, cut out the middleman.
Land Rover crime doesn't pay.
It doesn't. No, in fact, you know what? For all of the bad rap that Land Rover has gotten around their stealing of cars and all that sort of stuff, the capture rate of late has been pretty high.
It seems like these folks are facing the music. Maybe there's a Land Rover vigilante out there somewhere.
Yeah, the Punisher of Land Rovers. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's Joe Eberhardt. He's out there by himself, just solving these crimes.
This gentleman sends to 3 years in jail.
Shit, that's not great. Probably wasn't worth it. Crime doesn't pay.
Probably not.
Crime doesn't pay.
Doesn't have a Land Rover and is in jail.
And is in jail and had to pay that 25% tariff. So that's unfortunate.
It might be cheaper.
It might be cheaper. Might just to steal them. Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of tariffs, back to that situation, it looks like shares of Tata Motors slid 6% on news of tariffs.
Yeah. You got to think the entire automotive set. Well, the whole market has just been taking a beating lately, right? Around all of this uncertainty.
It's just like
nuts.
So many changes. First we're changing to electric cars. Then wait, we're not changing to electric cars.
Yeah.
And then, we're leaving the Chinese market and we're focusing on the U.S. market.
That's right.
Wait, now we've got these tariffs to deal with.
So back to China. We're going to go back to China. Yeah.
It's wild.
It is wild. It's got to be just incredibly difficult for our good friends at JLR to come up with a strategy to make all this work. It's not an envious task to be a car manufacturer right now, that's for sure. And also then, Gen Zers and Gen Alphas, they don't want cars. They don't care. They're just going to walk, I guess, or take a Waymo, so
yeah,
that's tough. Well, we'll wrap it up for this week because this is a short one because we've had 2 epic episodes recapping the big Australian adventure. And then next week, African Australian. Well,
and I feel like we need a third to tie it all together.
We definitely need a to talk to some of these individuals. I want to know about this chest brand. What did that feel like? What compelled you to do it? All this sort of stuff. Does Linus now have one as well? And then, of course, Jenna and Liza are out right now at the big Anarch steward training thing. And love to hear about that. All of our favorite Land Rover people are there, except for us. But we will have them on next week to talk all about that. Give us a big recap of that Land Rover extravaganza out there. Bob Steele's there, Justin from Lucky 8, Ralph Sarek, of course. All your favorite people are there. So
yeah, it's going to be interesting to hear about that event. We got some big projects in the works coming up, so maybe we'll talk a little bit about that.
We'll see
what happens, but definitely catch us on the next episode.
It's going to be great. And until then, see you next week.
Take care.
The Underpowered Hour is produced by Liza Beres, Ike Goss, and me, Steve Beres. Pavel Svardov composed and performed our theme music. Consider supporting the show on Patreon, and if you already do, thank you. Your support makes the show possible. For even more, check out our Instagram or Facebook.